This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
After 8 o'clock, this is Kenya's biggest conversation. It is the Situation Room this Thursday, the 9th of October, getting into some conversations to continue into looking into the state of the economy and what it actually looks like. You're going to like who's here in the studio this morning. Perhaps, and I already chided him earlier on, and the last time we saw him or had a conversation with him was one of a political nature, and things were very, very different then. But now we have a different conversation with Nderitu Mureithi, who is the chairman of the Kenya Revenue Authority, and still, even today, an economist.
Oh, indeed. I mean, well, economist by profession. So even when I have been saying frontline politics, or back in the private sector doing advisory work, both for private sector but also for public, economist.
How are you doing?
I'm well.
You're wearing a different hat now.
An additional hat, yes.
An additional hat.
An additional hat is what I would say. Many of my regular hats are still on.
Okay.
You know, I write. Many people don't know that I write a weekly column on the state of the economy, on economic matters. My actual work, my professional work, is that I'm partner at EcoCap Capital. We are an advisory firm. We advise companies, we advise governments. Yeah.
Well, it's good to see you all the same.
Thank you.
And I know we're getting into this conversation this morning. We're going to be looking to the state of the economy, and whether we like it or not, it's tied in one way or another to the political arena.
Without doubt.
Without doubt. All right. So even as we do, Dennis is going to welcome you with today's proverb. That hasn't changed.
Yeah. So the proverb today comes from Togo, a country bordered by Ghana, Burkina Faso, and the Atlantic Ocean. But let's look at the economy, an area you like, right? So their main exports include phosphates, cotton, coffee, and cocoa. And
this is Togo.
Togo, yes. Togo.
Okay.
And it is one of the world's top producers of phosphate, but agriculture as well employs 60% of the population, and that helps in pushing the country's economy. And some of the products that they grow, maize, yams, cassava, and millet. But today, they're giving us a proverb as well. A man does not know he has pepper in his eyes. How would you interpret that?
How would he not? I mean, pepper, his eyes would be tearing. Would they not? If he had pepper in his. How would I interpret that? Perhaps human beings we can often be pointing to the other person. You know, like that. Is it in the Bible that the log in your eye before the speck in your neighbor's?
Yeah.
I would liken it to that perhaps human beings, we see problems or we externalize problems. So we'll point to Dennis, we'll point to Nderitu, but not ourselves. That would be my interpretation.
Yeah, so we have pepper in our eyes, but all we are seeing is the ones on Du's eyes.
Maybe it's even sugar, and we are saying
it's pepper.
Exactly. Look, there is something there, and it is sugar.
Yeah. I think the proverb speaks on looking inwards.
Indeed.
Sort ourselves first before others, you know. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, again, thank you for being here. I mean, it's been easily 3 years since we had this conversation.
No way.
I kid you not.
No
Nderitu.
way. It cannot
way.
be.
Imagine way. I'm telling you.
It cannot. Okay, here is my recollection.
Okay, here we
Here's
go.
my recollection. 2023, I'm in the Situation Room several times. Including one colorful, shall I call it color? One time that we're doing Maandamano, and I had been arrested twice in Nyahururu for Maandamano.
This was 2023. You're right. So let's go 2 years. Okay.
Yeah. Then 2024, again in the situation room. I remember one time, because we were talking, I had just come from Sri Lanka because I was advising Parliament of Sri Lanka on public debt oversight, or how to improve public debt oversight. And I recall us talking about comparing what they're doing in Sri Lanka and what Kenya is doing, and perhaps the role of the parliamentary committee.
Maybe I wasn't here.
You were there, it's very good. What I will admit to, since I have worn the hat of
Chairman of the Kenya Revenue Authority.
Chairman of the Kenya Revenue Authority, I have noticed one or two of my friends have, gone easy. They're not sure whether
can we talk to him.
Can we talk to him or not? Is he going to start saying, where is your PIN? Can I check whether you have?
I was half waiting for you to ask us a question when you came this morning.
I hope you did not check before coming.
No, I did no such thing. I was really happy to be here. And look forward to the conversation.
All right, well, let's jump into it, shall we?
Indeed.
There's a sea of raging waters.
Okay.
So, and I'm going to have to do this. That when you were governor of Laikipia County, and your thoughts and words were always around things that needed to be done to increase not just the outlook of the economy, but the capacity of the economy to operate, whether it was where it's domiciled geographically, but then also with a global outlook on how the economy then needed to do better. And there were things that you talked about all the time in terms of units of measure to say, this is where the economy should be going. This is what a tax regime ought to look like.
Indeed.
This is what the government of the day must do. Has that changed now with your appointment as the chairman of the Kenya Revenue Authority in terms of what you say needs to be done for an economy to operate?
Absolutely
Taking into
not.
consideration the political skew that this has.
Absolutely not. I mean, being chair of KRA, first let me put it in its context that last year being 2024, a number of us from the Azimio side joined government in the aftermath of the Gen Z revolution, shall I call it. By the way, it must have been last year also, because I
not
recall.
gonna let it go, are you?
No, okay, let me let it go. But I recall, I was living here, and your sister station said to me, "Oh, can we talk to you for a moment?" And they said, "What do you say to young people?"
Okay, voila, you must be right then.
Yes, and I said to them, you are powerful beyond measure. And it came to pass. So, a number of us joined government. It is an opportunity to do those things that we have been saying should be done. It is an opportunity to be, first of all, to do, but also to provide advice at close quarter. So for me as chair of KRA, it's an opportunity to do the things that I kept on saying should be done, to turn Kenya Revenue Authority into Kenya Revenue Service. To be much, much more focused on the customer, to expand the tax base so that the weight is not just on formal companies and people who have a pay slip. And those are, in fact, the things that I am pursuing as chair of KRA. So tax base expansion. For instance, you will have had, I'm sure, in the last month or two, my management at KRA talking about the agency model, that we are looking to get as many as 10,000 agents this year, and that will continue. And we are not reinventing the wheel. We're doing what leading Kenyan corporates do. If you look at leading Kenyan banks, from Cooperative Bank, KCB, Equity, and so on, if you look at leading telcos like Safaricom, the model that has worked is an agency model, so that in every village, there's a touch point. Today, we have barely 146 service points, including Huduma centers. But that's not enough, in my view, to reach Kenyans. We need that in wherever you live, because you need, that we are close to you.
Okay, so
in addition, of course, using technology. So you will see, for example, now you can reach us on WhatsApp. You can do a lot of stuff with us on WhatsApp. You know, you can reach us on USSD. So *222#, and again a whole raft of services, and that's the direction we'll continue. So it has not changed. It is an opportunity for us to do those things. You will have seen me, for example, arguing this week in my column about credit rating of Kenya.
Right.
That I believe we actually must argue for an investment grade credit rating. And going back to when I was getting Laikipia rated by GCR, which is now part of Moody's, the same conversation that let us have objectivity in the assessment of this economy and its attractiveness or lack thereof for investors. Let us have a sort of independent, objective assessment on this country's ability to service its debt and so on and so on. And so it's an opportunity for me and for my colleagues for us to do those things that we are saying should be done. Zero-based budgeting, which was one of our big ideas in Azimio, partially implemented during this budget cycle with the full expectation that is, with I'm talking about 2020, 24-25 budget, zero-based budgeting was partially implemented. In the 25-26, a bit better. In the budget cycle that we have begun now, which is now for next year, 26-27, we expect zero-based budgeting will be in full force.
Okay. Do you think, and because when we talk about the economy and we look at the responsibility that the economy has essentially to push the nation forward, when it comes to then your spend and your save and your payment of debt, for Kenya, is too much pressure put on the shoulders of KRA? And I ask this because when budgets are being made, we are told that in order to finance this budget, we are depending on the monies that KRA collects, and then we are going to borrow to meet the shortfall. Yes?
How is it that we say in church? To he who whatever
Much is given,
much is expected. So is it too much pressure on KRA? I don't think so. We do, however, in our conversations with our colleagues at Treasury, push for better estimation of revenue, realistic estimation of revenue. Now, remember what happens, colleagues, and I really would like to encourage Kenyans to be engaging earlier in the budget cycle, like now.
Like now.
Yes, exactly, because the way we budget goes, we start with the budget review and outlook paper. Budget review meaning let's look backwards and say what happened last year. Outlook, let us look to the future to see what is our expectation of the economy. How much growth are we expecting? What do we expect inflation to be, and so on and so on. And on the basis of that, we estimate we are going, for example, this cycle, to raise 2.95 trillion shillings. That is based on our estimation of growth. So economic activity, how much economic activity do we expect will be there, and so on. So KRA is unique in the sense that it is the only organization constitutionally and legally that does what we do. So it's a bit of a unique institution. And by the way, we sit on the security committee. So my CEO goes to or sits because in the security committee, because we are also responsible for border control, which is actually a security function. But deeper than that, without taxes, there is no state. So I don't think that it is too much responsibility, but I do think our estimation of revenue needs to be tapered, particularly from the political side. Because remember, this budget, as we are going through the budget cycle, and it will go to Parliament, MPs will be saying, what about my project? My road is not in the budget, my road needs, and so on. And that tends to increase the pressure for expenditure. And therefore, that pressure is passed through that, okay, can you guys collect a bit more?
Yeah.
So that we can
Kenyans start to
Yes.
feel as though KRA is a
It's a
predatory
nasty
agency
fellow.
as
Yes.
opposed to the servitude that you talk about. And that's where I was going with that. Because if that pressure is put on the shoulders, okay, KRA, go out and get a little bit more, then the way in which they go about it doesn't give Kenyans the look that this is actually a friendly agency who's just trying to help you do what you should do with Caesar.
Indeed. Two things, though, we should separate. First is the policy measures. Kizungu mingi, what am I trying to be? You see, the finance bill usually says, change this tax from here to here. Change this other one from here to here. This is what we are going to exempt, and so on and so on. So those are policy measures. Those are proposed by the executive, by National Treasury, enacted by the National Assembly. Once they are enacted, then it is our responsibility to go and collect. So that now, and you know, just in the headlines, there is this story here about what the World Bank thinks should be excise duty and VAT. The determination of what is the level of VAT is not really up to me and my team. That determination is up to Treasury and the National Assembly. Once they determine, then our responsibility is to collect. And yes, we must collect in a way that is efficient, in a way that does not put Kenyans into difficulty, in a way that does not inconvenience our businesses. We must collect in the most efficient way possible, and that's what we endeavor to do.
Nderitu, so you've mentioned something to do with growth, the economy and its growth, and
Yes.
being someone that sits inside.
Yes.
How is it?
Has been struggling, is on the rebound. Has been struggling, is on
The rebound.
the rebound. What objective measure can you use? Maybe we can rely on the Purchasing Managers Index, which is an objective survey done by Stanbic following global. I mean, the PMI is done in many countries. It's a survey of the top 500 companies asking them, are you hiring? Do you expect to hire? How are your orders going? And so on. And for the first time in many, many months, this September, the PMI index is above 50%. So the majority of Kenyan large companies are saying they are experiencing higher orders. And they expect those higher orders to continue over the next quarter. And that is good news. A majority of Kenyan large companies are saying they are hiring. Okay? For many months, when they were asked, are you hiring? They would say, no, we are letting off staff. Now, they are hiring. Another objective measure you can look at is credit to private sector. That, you know, if you went back to January, it was contracting, month on month or quarter on quarter. It was like -2, meaning the money that is being lent, to private sector is actually shrinking. Now, if you look at last September, central bank reports a 5% expansion of credit to private sector. Is it where we want it to be? Absolutely not. Personally, I want to see the growth of credit to private sector at above 15%. Because I think that's the only way we will really have sustained economic recovery. So, it's on the mend. It's not where we want it to
But
be.
even as the economy continues to grow, Kenyan out here would say, I'm not feeling it.
Absolutely.
Kenyan would say, it is good talk that is coming from the people who understand it. But on a personal level, my pocket is empty. As well as Kenyans don't understand the big language, so we need to break down for them.
Dennis, I disagree with you completely. Kenyans understand. Kenyans absolutely understand and are saying exactly as it is. That you, Nderitu, and you government folks, you're telling us inflation is low, but I'm not feeling the money in my pocket. And that is actually factual, Dennis. You know why? There is a transmission mechanism. When inflation is low, central bank then lowers interest rates so that companies can borrow to expand.
But that's not happening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
Exactly.
Banks are not lowering
Exactly.
the rates. It's not happening.
Exactly. And that's what Kenyans are saying. That look, the transmission mechanism is not working. The central bank agrees with Kenyans that the transmission mechanism is not working properly. That is why yesterday, they lowered the central bank rate yet again for the 9th time in a row, trying to signal and push banks to lend more to the private sector. I'll tell you what I, as Nderitu Mureithi, what my advice that I have proffered, is that English?
Well, it sounds nice, so we can use it.
My advice, what I have said to my seniors at Treasury, and is like this. It is time for government to consider borrowing directly from Kenyans. Because you know how it is. Banks take deposits from Kenyans. They pay you maybe 1%, if that, or 2% on your savings. They take those deposits, that's what they lend to government at 15%. I think government should use technology today and borrow directly from Kenyans. Now, mobile money platforms are moving 3 times the GDP. They are moving something like 45 trillion per year.
Yes.
So, at that rate, Kenyans could probably lend government half of what it needs in a whole year in maybe an hour or two. So that monetary policy can be freed, if I can use that word, from the chokehold that banks have on them. Banks are not, but granted, it has gone up 5%, coming from -2. In January, you see, if you take all the total loans to private sector, and then you check, are they growing? Are they declining? In January, they were declining by -2%. Now, in September, they have grown at 5%, meaning we are moving in the right direction, but not with the speed desired, certainly by us on the policy-making side, and certainly by Kenyans.
Right.
And I think, anyway, I strongly believe that if the Monetary Authority and Treasury were to agree to borrow directly from Kenyans and run away from these banks, then the banks would be forced to go and lend the private sector, which is what they should have been doing in the first place, and boost.
The economy.
And once they do that, then money will get to our pockets.
Why are they not agreeing?
Well, for 2 reasons. One, they continue to get good returns from lending to government. That's why my advice is that government stop borrowing from these banks, borrow from Kenyans, borrow from Kenyans, so that banks do what they are supposed to do, which is lend the private sector.
Okay, so we've easily seen in the last 3 to 5 years that commodity prices have increased significantly. That what you were able to purchase, you're still able to purchase it, but you're doing so at a highly inflated price. Now, I'm not talking about government interventions for things like Unga, for the endless story that we hear that we've made Unga 100 shillings. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying for 1,000 shillings, what you're able to buy 5 years ago has decreased in value over the same 1,000 shillings. Now, what mechanisms will be put in place to make that better? Because the basic question for Kenyans today is, when am I going to be able to afford food? And Nderitu, we're talking about basic things here. A 3-meal-a-day family is a rarity in Kenya today. And we are talking about taxes that are applied to commodities, services, goods coming in and out of the country. And the person who bears the brunt of all of this conversation is the person who has to remove the shilling from their pocket to purchase.
A couple of things to say in response. First, it is true. If you look at our data, government data, look at the economic survey, it is clear real wages is exactly what you've described. That, if I have 1,000 shillings, what can it get me? What can I buy with it? And the reality is that real wages had declined from 2019, which is the recent peak, if you say recent, like over the last decade or so, when did real wages peak? They peaked at 2019. After COVID, or during COVID and after COVID, they have continued to decline. Up until 2023. In 2024, we have seen about four sectors where real wages have begun to come up. But you see what it means. If you are down, say, 18%, which was the case, for example, for agricultural workers, their real wages were down about 16-17%. Even when you recover 3%, you are still in the hole.
Right.
Even if you recover 10%, you'll still be in the hole. You have to recover the entire 16% in order to be at par with where you were some time ago. And then only after that will your standard of living actually start improving. And that's what Kenyans are saying. So Dennis, Kenyans are being quite factual that the recovery has not yet gotten us from the hole we've been in into now improvements in our standard of living. Will it get there? The answer is yes. Can it get there faster? If we are able to get banks to do what they're supposed to do, which is intermediate credit to private sector, then we can get there faster. If they refuse what we do, my advice to my own seniors in government is that we stop borrowing from banks and borrow from Kenyans, because the money that banks lend to government is our deposits. And the technology exists. The experiments or the, government, whatever, even large companies, they like to pilot. Has the pilots been? Yes. Emakiba. Government has previously sold its debt or borrowed in very small amounts in a bond called Emakiba. So it is there. The central bank itself has DAO CDS, meaning you can trade these securities online. So the technology exists. It is possible for us to do it and rid ourselves of this chokehold that our friends in the commercial banks have on us.
Because that translates to then folks not having enough money in their pocket, from what you're saying.
It translates into two things. Your income has not recovered enough so that the basket of goods you can buy with your 1,000 or whatever, with your 10, it has not recovered sufficiently. And that's why Kenyans are saying, yeah, we hear you, but in my pocket, bado iko shida.
But even as you talk about slow recovery and Kenyans saying, bado mfuko yangu iko vibaya, there is also the aspect of the budget policy that you've just mentioned, Treasury coming in with the finance bill and all that, and the need for KRA to collect more. Right? And as that happens, you hear Kenyans say, as much as we need to collect, we have been doing that every other time. But perhaps it's time for government as well to look on the expenditure side of things. And KRA being an important partner in budget policy, I'm assuming you get consulted when these things do happen. Are these conversations that are on the table in terms of, as much as we're supposed to collect more, perhaps government needs to look at expenditure?
Well, indeed, government needs to look at expenditure much more successfully. I say much more successfully because if you look at policy papers, we are always talking about fiscal consolidation. Basically, it's about, rationalizing the expenditure side. I would like to say that it is my view that we are not really debating the expenditure side as much as we should, as Kenyans, as parliamentarians, we are not really debating the expenditure side enough. We only debate the finance bill, and the finance bill is generally an outcome of a budgeting process, which has already begun. So if you look at I don't know what measure you can use, debates or stories in the newspapers, or I don't know what, you will not hear people commenting on the budget review and outlook paper. And it is already out, which says, this is what happened last year. This is where we think we are going with this. And hence why we think this year we will collect 2.95 trillion. In another month, next month, November, the next step of the budget, which is the budget policy statement, which is where the overall budget estimates are included. Again, nobody pays attention to it. Yet this is really where we should debate, whether the things that are in there are the ones we want. Then that will translate in February, into the debt management strategy and so on. All of these instruments, at each time, at each point, they go to the National Assembly, but you don't hear the debate. Only in around May, when the outcome, or one of the outcomes, which is the finance bill, now gets really big national debate.
When the baby has already been born. And so you're saying we should have done a scan and seen if there was an issue.
The born, yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
So if that's the case, then perhaps when you talk about Kenya, then it's been said by the folks who crunch the numbers and come out in the civil space that Kenya doesn't have a revenue problem.
We have
Kenya has an expenditure problem.
Yes.
And unfortunately, this expenditure issue is handled by the minority of individuals who sit in government. That today it is not the Kenyan that we're asking to debate about these issues who has a problem with how they spend this money that could go to other things. It's the minority of less than 2,000 people. Imagine that.
And I would agree with
2,000 people against 55 million, whereby a certain amount of money is being spent without taking the consideration of Kenyans as how they spend this money.
Give me a moment.
Because how do you explain that you budget for money that you don't have? For us, if I'm in my house, I say I have 2,000 shillings.
Yeah.
This is what I know I have. Now let me cut my coat according to this 2,000 shillings. But look at the budget. This policy goes through, the budget comes out, and they said, okay, jolly well, these are the things that we need to do. We don't take into consideration the amount of money we already have. We project, and then we say, okay, I want to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. KRA and Nderitu will go and find us, perhaps they can get us 2.9 trillion. The remaining 1.1 trillion, maybe we can borrow it, maybe we can get it from here, maybe we can get it from here. When that doesn't happen, what do? We borrow. Guess what? 100 billion shillings in 4 months. It's in the paper today, if you think I'm lying. And because it's in the paper, it must be true. So, 4 months, 95.5 billion shillings borrowed in 4 months, taking Kenya's debt to 12 trillion shillings. So we borrow the money because we've budgeted with money that we don't have.
Thank you. Now, there are like 7 big points there. So let me try and tackle them one at a time. Who debates the expenditure side? Who prepares it? The executive proposes from the executive side. The judiciary proposes its expenditure. The National Assembly or Parliament, the Parliamentary Service, which is Parliament, Assembly and Senate, and all of these converge at the table of the Parliamentary Budget Committee. What are the legal instruments used? The ones I'm explaining. Budget review and outlook. Now, I would wish, if I had my wish, this is where the most debate should be. Now, if we're saying we're expecting 5.2% growth, what do other experts believe? Should we lower it? Should we? You understand? We believe we'll be able to have inflation at a certain level. Should it, what do other experts believe? We believe we'll be able to get credit to private sector to move in a certain way. Is that, and so this is where the most debate should be. Next month in November, when the sector hearings are going on, budget sector hearings, this is again where incredible amount of debate should happen. Why? Because that spending what we don't have is going to happen in November and December. That sectors will approach it. We need additional money to do this. We need additional money to do the other. We need additional money to do the other. And there will be very little debate as to this question we are talking about now. Should we or should we not? And we have how will we raise the resources to do so? That budget policy statement will be out in December for public scrutiny. I bet you will hardly hear a whisper about it. It will go before the National Assembly when they come back from January recess. So by 15th of February, and they will approve it. Once they approve it, then we'll say, how will we finance it? So whatever Nderitu and his team will collect, plus what we'll borrow, and we want some additional, maybe increase, make some increases in via the finance bill. So we will then have a big debate sometime in May, early June, about the finance bill. Of course, it is an important instrument to be debated. And as you saw last year, citizens were so emphatic that in fact it collapsed in total. But how I wish citizens would be emphatic at the budget policy statement, because that's where the expenditure ceilings are created, so that we don't wait to the end. Secondly, the way the political process unfolds with the budget, there is actually no political constituency for a balanced budget, for a smaller deficit. There is no member of parliament arguing, reduce expenditure. Every member of parliament is arguing, what about the project in my constituency? So some of us have come to believe that we must maybe create a legal way of resetting. People usually ask, what is it that Rainbow did 20 years ago, 25, almost 22 years ago, in 2003, 2004. Why were they successful? They were successful because they were able to run a balanced budget for 3 years. In fact, in 1 year, in 2004, they had a budget surplus of 1 billion. Okay? Now, the way we have been living is as though an economy like ours can be on deficit indefinitely. And the answer economists like me believe is that no, every so often you have to reset. The question is, how would you create the reset in a political environment that is just pushing for more and more expenditure? So perhaps in the PFM or even in the Constitution itself, we should consider a reset, a legally enforced balanced budget once every so often, maybe once every 7 years or so, because that reset is what allowed, that reset of 2003, 4, 5 is what allowed Kenya to get onto a very serious growth trajectory.
Would that reset include, stopping some projects? Because I'd like to give you some numbers, Nderitu, and you might be surprised at some of these. If we look at one of the things you talked about is that members of parliament are agitating, for example, for projects in their region or their constituency area of jurisdiction, then to be sorted out. Kenya as a whole, 9 trillion shillings is the value of stalled projects during the Kibaki and Uhuru administration. 9 trillion.
Indeed.
662.9 billion shillings is the cost required to complete some 442 stalled projects across multiple state departments by mid-2022. 124 billion shillings is the amount already spent on those same projects. So those same projects, which are not completed, have gobbled up 124 billion shillings.
And they require how much to get to completion?
To complete it, they require 662 billion shillings. 1.2 trillion shillings is the stock of incomplete projects in Kenya in the public sector today. 1.3 trillion shillings. 600 billion shillings is the estimate. This is by the Project Management Institute, is the losses due to stalled or mismanaged public projects. This is just the projects that have not been completed, whereby there's a budget every year that more money is being looked for, that KRA, the 2.9 trillion that they're going to be able to collect, is going to go towards paying some of these things. It's going to go towards making sure that debt, which again is through the roof, is paid. Remember, the first charge from a consolidated fund is debt repayment up to 70 shillings on the 100 shillings mark. So this is the kind of money that we're talking about. When people are going to Parliament to ask for more money, there is 1.3 trillion shillings in unfinished projects already. There is billions of shillings. There are billions of shillings that have already been paid on these projects, which, if we're lucky, will reach midterm in terms of completion. It seems like an absolute joke to me. I'm sorry. I don't understand how we can be operating in that deficit and saying that the economy is growing. Where?
Well, both things can be true. The economy is growing, and that we have a stock of unfinished projects. Let me just take perhaps one that is the favorite of Gen Zs, only because they were mocking the president about it. If you take the corridor from Isiolo to Ethiopia through Mandera, that corridor has been under development now for the better part of 7 years. Different portions are complete. Some portions, contractors are ongoing. Some portions are yet to start. So, if you look at incomplete projects, that road will show up as an incomplete project. Is it ongoing? It is. Are there contractors on site? They are. Are there portions that are about to begin? There are. For example, one that I, as myself and my organization as KRA, we are involved in, are the bridges at Suftu and Ramu. Ramu with a R.
The real R.
Yeah, the real R. And these bridges are over River Dawa, so they are landing on the Ethiopian side. And just a couple of months ago, we were in Addis agreeing with the Ethiopian government the siting of the bridges. Now, that project is part of the broader project, which is the Lapset Development Corridor. Is it complete? It is not complete. Is it ongoing? Large parts of it are complete. I mean, the 3 or 5 bats, I can't remember, of the port. So the port is partially in use because it is finished or one phase of it is finished, and actually it is under use. Is the road from Lamu Port to Garissa through to Isiolo complete? It isn't. Is it ongoing? It is. So does it show up as incomplete project? Of course it does. And you can go on and on and on. Look at irrigation projects like the Revival or whatever, an extension of Galana Kularo. Is it complete? Not really. Will it show up as incomplete? It will show up as an incomplete project. And you can go on in every sector. You will look at the national fiber optic cable. Has it been? It has been in progress for the last 10 years. Is it complete? That contract is still running. Some areas are still getting connected to the national optic fiber backbone. So yes, there are many projects. That and that number there, 442, I don't doubt it. I would expect a number like that. Now, I don't know how the loss has been calculated. I presume the person is talking about opportunity cost, that if you don't finish a project on time, you have to reflect on what you are losing, what opportunity you are losing, because the asset is not under use. And again, I would agree with the person that now whether it is 660 billion, I may not be able to judge off the cuff, but there is an opportunity cost to delayed projects. Now, is the economy growing? The economy is growing. Is it growing at the pace that we would want it to grow? No, we should grow. We should have a stronger economic performance, because that is what will, first of all, recover lost ground. Because remember what we said, real wages had declined over a nearly 5-year period. Well, granted that if you look in agriculture, for example, if you look in construction, if you look at financial services, and I forget one fourth one, where real wages have begun to recover. Now, if the economy grows faster, and for it to grow faster, we need to succeed in getting credit to the private sector. That is what, and we do it over a sustained period of time. Not just growth for 1 quarter. We're talking about growth for 2 or 3 or 4 years. That kind of trajectory is what will recover lost ground and elevate our standard of living. Completing projects faster, sooner, at cost helps us to achieve in that objective. However, it is possible for us to be growing even though they are incomplete projects.
But Nderitu, when you talk about completing these projects faster and sooner, at any given contractual agreement, there are timelines at when these projects ought to be completed. So at what point then you look at, especially during transitions from one government to the other, you'd find a new government gets in and projects that are being undertaken by the previous government do not become a priority. The reason why you find, even in Nairobi, some are just shells of what they used to be. At that point, the government and the people of Kenya are losing revenue because of a political decision and failure to continue with projects that were there. And one would argue that instead of starting new projects, let's complete what it is we have first of all before we start anything new. Because what happens is new projects, new budgetary allocations, yet the projects that ought to have been completed that we get opportunity cost that you're talking about are lost because of a political decision and not guided by the economic situation.
Well, certainly, and I would agree with you, Dennis, 100% that first and foremost, any succeeding governments must really complete the projects that they find ongoing, and that is the case at both levels of government, at the national government, at the county government. I hold the view that in fact we should consider personal liability. That where public officials willingly incur cost, willingly, or because of neglect of duty or something like this, what could be done? Because you see, even if you want to cancel an existing contract, there will be penalties to that contract. So you have to be able to demonstrate in a cost-benefit analysis that I am cancelling this commercial contract in order to enter into this other commercial contract because this will be the benefits to the public, when I compare the two. What, of course, we have seen in county level, but also at national government, is that some projects either are cancelled or don't get as much priority, and yet there is no clear demonstration of the economic value why that should be cancelled. So it is my personal view that, in fact, we should tighten the law, the PFM, to allow for penalties resulting from the way decision-making happens. Will we get there? Who knows? But, that is my own personal
Should we get there?
We should get there. Yeah. Because what we see is, and again, you had me talking about credit rating earlier.
Yes.
Look, government exists, or the state exists in perpetuity. Okay? So, Nderitu may be governor today, tomorrow it will be Dennis, the other time it will be Ndu, and that's the way it should be. Now, if we continue this, let's cancel everything Nderitu was doing, then let's cancel everything Dennis was doing, then let's cancel, so
we go nowhere.
We go nowhere. And it's unfortunate that we have some political leaders who think that way, because it is ridiculous. Actually, it is not proper. We have seen, for example, in the debates about pending bills at county level, that succeeding governors reluctant to pay the pending bills of their predecessors. Again, look, if you look at the debt register today, National Debt Register. I know some people say it's not. It's there. Just look at the Treasury website. Should it be improved and so on? Maybe. In fact, I'm on record saying we should improve even the presentation of the debt register. Long story to say like this, Dennis. If you look at the debt register, you'll find there a loan from 1972. Okay, that we are paying. It's the oldest loan that you will find in the debt register. But that's the way it is. The state exists in perpetuity. We must complete. It is good order to complete the projects you find when you get into office. And that's really the way it should happen in order to avoid. First of all, it's good economic sense, and it avoids the opportunity cost that we're talking about.
Nderitu, probably the last question that we have time for this morning is that you alluded to, putting the money in the hands of the private sector. When we look at other jurisdictions, industrialization and manufacturing has to take place for economic development to happen.
Indeed.
The bigger companies that we see around the world who are making moves are private companies. These are companies that have creative environment has been created by their selective governments in order for them to thrive. Take your pick. Very few of these are majority owned by government. Very few.
Indeed.
So, shouldn't Kenya be looking towards industrialization, manufacturing, in order to grow the economy, not this business of chasing people down the street in order to collect a shilling?
Absolutely. And, well...
It's what happens. I'm telling you.
It took my breath away for a moment there. This chasing people down the street. We are not doing that, but we are firm in trying to collect taxes. The economy thrives by private sector. There are, of course, companies where government is invested that actually are very strong economic operators.
Right.
Look at Safaricom and KCB. I mean, government has very, very significant shares in those companies. Nonetheless, should be private sector led. What government's role is to create the environment that enables this to happen.
Right.
So, the idea, for example, of providing space for companies to operate from is not new to us. If you go back to Kenya Industrial Estates, that has been the work that they have been doing from the 60s. This question of credit to private sector, I consider it myself the biggest policy question of our time, this particular time, that everything else is working, inflation is low, exchange rate is where it should be. The number one thing that is in front of us, we need to overcome it, is the reluctance of commercial banks to intermediate credit to private sector and do so in an affordable manner. I think it should be the biggest debate that we're having. My opening salvo is that government should stop borrowing from the banks and borrow from Kenyans directly, because the deposits that are in the banks belong to us. And I bet you most of us would be willing to lend government. Government should offer us 5% or 6%. We are not getting 2% in the commercial banks. We'll lend government half of what they need in a year in the course of 1 hour on mobile money and finish the work.
There you go. He's the chairman of the Kenya Revenue Authority. He said it's going to be turned into a service soon. And
we are
on the way there.
We are already on the way there.
Okay.
Somebody asked me, okay, why haven't you changed the name yet? Because look, it's not just about the name. We want to live the talk.
Yeah.
We have to walk the talk and live the talk. For example, yesterday, we were at Ufungamano. Yes, Ufungamano. In a citizens' assembly.
Talking to people.
Talking to Kenyans. Two of my colleagues from the board, so the board and my commissioners and our technical teams, being grilled for most of the day by Kenyans at Ufungamano. Amazing stuff, and I was so happy with it. This follows on a similar thing in Mombasa a couple of weeks ago. It follows on a similar thing in Nakuru. The opening salvo by CS for Finance, John Badi, we did Bunge la Wananchi in January. We will continue. Watch this space.
You heard it from him, Nderitu Mureithi. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's almost 9:03. Good to see you again, and thank you for joining in this conversation. Look forward to many more. Asante sana. Good morning. 9:03.
latest news from around the world. 94 point. This is the Situation Room. The only way.